The first sound that told me we were being hunted wasn't a growl or a scream. It was the sound of a single, smooth stone tapping against a window pane in the dead of a KwaZulu-Natal night. A sound so small, so insignificant, that it could be anything. A bird, a falling seed pod, a trick of the wind. But it wasn't. It was a question, a polite knock from a demon, asking if you were home, and if you were afraid. That was the sound that began the 3 nights of hell from which I barely escaped. The sound that proved my go-go right. I had come back to my grandmother's homestead because she was sick. Not a hospital sickness, the doctor in the village had said, shrugging his shoulders. It was a sickness of the spirit. Her hands trembled. Her eyes, once as sharp as a hawk's, were clouded with a permanent, shimmering fear. I'd found her in the smoky dark of her rendezvous, a clay hut that had stood for 100 years, the air thick with the smell of wood smoke, dried herbs, and something else, something sour and thin. The smell of fear. Sipho, she'd whispered, her voice like dry leaves skittering across the dirt floor. You must put the bricks under the bed. Tonight. I've forced a smile. Go-go, it's me. I'm here now. No one will harm you. I was a man of the city, of logic and concrete. Her fears felt like echoes from a world I'd left behind, a world of superstition. It is not a man, she insisted, gripping my arm with surprising strength. Her knuckles were white. It is low to the ground. It hates to climb. That's when I first heard it. I froze. Gogo's grip tightened. The crickets outside seemed to fall silent, as if holding their breath. I walked to the small window, peering out into the oppressive darkness. The moon was a sliver, offering no comfort, only outlining the shifting shapes of the acacia trees. I saw nothing. It's just a branch, Gogo, I said, my voice a little too loud. She shook her head slowly, her eyes wide and fixed on the window. No, she rasped. It's tasting the air, seeing if our fear is sweet enough for it to feed on. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in a wooden chair, listening. The silence was worse than the tapping. It was an active, listening silence. Every creak of the hut, every sigh of the wind felt like a footstep. I told myself it was my imagination, that Gogo's fear was contagious. But I couldn't shake the feeling, a primal certainty that we were being watched by something that crouched in the dark, something with ancient, malevolent patience. The next day, a heavy, gray sky pressed down on the landscape, suffocating the colors and sounds. Gogo Themba refused to eat. She just stared at the door, her lips moving in a silent prayer. By nightfall, the air was electric, charged with an unspoken threat. The wind began to moan around the edges of the rendezvous. And then the sound came again. But it wasn't at the window this time. My blood ran cold. This was no branch. This was intentional. Gogo, I whispered, my own voice trembling now. What is it? The Tokoloshe, she breathed, and the name itself seemed to make the room colder. Someone has sent it. A person filled with jealousy, with a black heart. They hire a Sangoma who deals in shadow, and they send this thing to cause torment. It can sour the milk, poison the water, and if it gets to you while you sleep, it can steal your breath forever. I grabbed the heavy wooden table and dragged it, scraping it across the floor to barricade the door. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the rising storm. The bricks, Sipho, Gogo cried out, her voice cracking with terror. Now, I didn't hesitate. I ran out the back way into the storeroom, grabbing the heavy, dusty bricks we used to prop up the water drum. My hands shook as I carried them in. We worked in a panicked frenzy, lifting her old iron bed frame, sliding the cold, rough bricks under each leg. Then I did mine. My modern, city skepticism had evaporated, boiled away by the primal fear that now gripped me. The floor felt wrong, tainted. Raising the beds was a desperate act of surrender to a belief I had mocked only a day before. As I placed the last brick, a foul smell seeped under the door. The stench of stagnant river mud, of rot and wet fur. It was the smell of something that should not exist. And I knew then, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that the night was not over. The barricade on the door would not be enough. It still wanted to get in. The storm broke with the fury of a vengeful god. Rain hammered down on the thatch roof, and thunder cracked the sky open. Inside, our small lantern cast dancing, monstrous shadows. The scratching had stopped. The silence returned, even more terrifying amidst the chaos of the storm. We sat on our raised beds, islands in a sea of encroaching darkness. Gogo was praying, her words a low, desperate murmur. I held an old, heavy knob-carry stick, my knuckles white. My eyes darted around the room, trying to pierce the gloom. That's when I saw it. Not at the door, not at the window, but from above. Directly over Gogo's bed, a small shower of dust and dried grass fell from the ceiling. I looked up, my stomach lurching. A hole. A small, dark circle was appearing in the dense thatch, widening slowly, deliberately. Something was tearing its way through. Gogo. I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by a deafening clap of thunder. Another shower of debris fell. The hole was big enough now. And then, a shape blotted out the darkness. It was small, no bigger than a child, but it was not a child. It was a dense knot of shadow and matted fur, a silhouette of profound wrongness. It lowered itself with an unnatural agility, its limbs moving like a spider's. It made no sound as it landed on the dirt floor, a puddle of absolute night. For a moment, it stood there. I saw the gleam of two pinprick eyes, shining with a cold, ancient intelligence. It ignored me completely. Its head tilted, and it took a shuffling step towards my grandmother's bed. It wasn't here to kill. It was here to torment. It was an instrument of a curse. My mind raced. I couldn't fight it. To fight it was to lose. Gogo's stories flooded my mind. It was a creature of spite. It followed its master's orders. It was here for a reason.
As it reached the leg of her bed, its small, clawed hand reached up. It wasn't trying to climb. It was pointing at the small wooden box Gogo kept under her pillow. The box that held my grandfather's watch and the deed to this small piece of land. And in that horrifying instant, I understood. The sickness, the fear, the Tokoloshe. This wasn't a random haunting. It was a message, a cruel, terrifying act of extortion orchestrated by someone who knew exactly what Gogo cherished. I didn't think. I acted. I leaped from my bed, landing between the creature and my grandmother. I didn't swing the knob carry. I snatched the wooden box from under her pillow. The creature stopped, its head cocking to the side. Its chittering laugh filled the room, a sound of grating victory. "You want this?" I yelled, my voice raw. "Take it." And I hurled the box with all my strength, not at the creature, but towards the barricaded door. It smashed against the wood and fell to the floor. The Tokoloshe turned. In a flash of matted hair and crooked limbs, it scurried across the room, grabbed the box in its claws, and scrambled back up through the hole in the roof. And then it was gone. The storm passed as quickly as it had arrived. As the first gray light of dawn filtered through the hole in our roof, an eerie calm settled over the homestead. The physical threat was gone. The land, the watch, they were gone. But we were alive. My Gogo recovered. Slowly, but the light in her eyes never fully returned. The fear had been replaced by a deep, hollow sorrow. The knowledge that the monster wasn't the hairy thing that crept in the night, but the human heart that had summoned it. Our own family, my uncle, who had always been jealous of my grandfather's land. The Tokoloshe was just the weapon. The real evil was human. I never fixed the hole in the roof. I left it there, a scar, a reminder that the world I thought I knew, the world of logic and reason, has holes in it. holes that things can crawl through. I live in the city again, surrounded by concrete and steel and electric light. But I never feel safe, because sometimes in the dead of night, when the city is quiet, I hear it. A faint tap, tap, tap. It might be the plumbing. It might be the wind. But I know what it is. It's a question being asked from the darkness. And I know that the most terrifying thing in the world isn't the scream or the growl. It's the silence that follows when you know you've been heard.